according to canon law, it's my obligation as the pastor at least once a year to give a financial report to the parish. And this happens to be the Sunday. I'm sorry it's on your birthday, Rosemary. But I know your love for the parish, and I know this is important to you too. You'll find in the bulletin that there's a copy of the Statement of Church Revenue and Expenses, and on the other side, the Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Fund Balances for the whole parish. There's a whole lot of figures there, and they're a little bit staggering. When I look it over, I see that this past year, we increased the offertory collection by $19,500, so that is a good thing. However, since the end of June to the present day, the collection has been down by 10% over last year. And so that becomes a concern. The two biggest concerns on this is that we were $77,000 in deficit spending last year and $73,000 this year. And if we go one more year, that means we won't have any money left in another, by next June. So that's a little scary when you look at it. But on the other hand, I have great hope. I remember when I arrived here at St. Patrick's 4 years ago, I was scared to death with what I saw and what I found, what we needed to do. There was so much. But I look over 4 years, and because of your generosity and your self-sacrifice, we've been able to do so much. The Lord calls us to give of our time, talent, and treasure. And in order to build up His church, which is a sign of His kingdom right here in West Park. And I look not only at the financial good that has happened, but the spiritual good. When I see all of the wonderful people coming to the Sacrament of Penance, to the Eucharist, almost 200 funerals we've celebrated, and a whole bunch of weddings and baptisms, and I'm really grateful. I look at people like Rosemary and her husband and children, completely giving. Rosemary has led the Legion of Mary for a number of years, and behind the scenes meeting every Tuesday, praying to the Blessed Mother, and then they go out and visit the sick and do whatever is possible that they can do for the good of the parish. And that's a wonderful gift. And so we have to include all those things. You see the front of the church now is looking really beautiful. They've been cleaning it up, and the stone is really clean and really nice. And they'll be doing all the tuck pointing that'll help stop the water from coming in that end of the church downstairs. And the money for that is in the bank because so many of you gave for that a year ago. And so we'll be able to meet that expense. But then we have to do the rest of the church, and we have to do the roof of the primary school building, and we have to do the parking lot, and we have to do a whole bunch of other things. And so we need to just keep on being as generous as we can. It's a bit staggering when you look on this and you see that just utilities, insurance, and property taxes were $139,876 this year. That's a lot of money just for gas and lights and taxes. And insurance is killing us. But we need to have it. We've used that insurance a number of times in the last few years, and it's been for our good. You'll notice the diocesan assessment is up from $36,000 last year to $50,000 this year, and that's because we don't have a school any longer. Parishes with schools get taxed 12% of their income on the offertory, and those without schools get taxed 17%. And so our increase has been up. And you see that the $1 million that we owe the diocese is still there. It's not going to go away. In the last several months, I've been paying $1,000 extra with the assessment bill, trying to at least show our goodwill and that we know we have to face that. But I'm going to stop sending that $1,000 right now because we can't really afford it right now. And I hope the bishop understands. I'm sure he'll let me know. But so all those things seem to be a little bit overwhelming, but with God's grace, it's all very possible. I know for myself, it's time for me to reevaluate what I donate to the parish. I turned 70 last June, and now I get a Social Security check every month, which is nice, and I still get my salary. So I have to increase what I give to the parish. And I think if we just keep that in mind, the scriptures tell us that we should give 10% of our income to God. That means if I have $1, I keep 90 cents and God gets 10 cents. And if you look at that over all of your income and say, how much can I give to God? And 5% should come to your parish, 5% should go to Catholic Charities and to the other charities that you have that are favorites of yours. And so those are the things that things we need to consider, that's our obligation. And some say, well, it's really hard, Father. Well, it is. But the Lord is never outdone in generosity. Whatever we do for God, he returns over and over and over again. And so we just ask you to consider it. Look over these figures, and if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask me about it. I'll be glad to explain whatever you need to know, because I have to share it all with you. When I start thinking about everything that has to be done and the bills to be paid, I get all upset. But then I realize it's not just on my shoulders, it's on all of our shoulders. And so if we all together keep up the generous giving we're doing, we're going to be fine. The scriptures today, we're familiar with the story of the publican and the Pharisee, the poor guy who recognizes that he's a sinner. He recognizes his sin because he loves God. That's an interesting thought I get from this. And so he just comes into the church very humbly, kneeling in the back and saying, Lord, be merciful to me, a sinner. The Pharisee comes in with his head straight up and says, God, I want you to know how good I am. I pay my taxes, I pay my tithes, I give to the poor, I do all these things. And so, God, you should congratulate me on what I'm doing. He's very proud. And what he's done is he's really forgotten about a place for God in his life. We all need a place for God in our life. A writer recently coined the phrase of talking about the gift of inadequacy. The gift of inadequacy. I never thought about inadequacy as a gift. But when you do think about it, if I look at everything that the Lord calls me to do or that I must do in my life, I go before the Lord very inadequate to fulfill all the obligations I have. But then I put it into his hands, and he gives me the strength to fulfill what I need to do. I think that's for all of us, isn't it? We recognize our inadequacy before God in a very humble way, and then the Lord gives us the strength to do what we need to do. And so I think that's what we have to look at in our personal lives as well as in our parish life. We're inadequate, but God does. The first reading said that our prayers pierce through the clouds, and they don't stop until they get to their goal, and the Lord always responds. And so we have to remember that, to keep placing everything in God's hands. St. Patrick Parish is a wonderful parish. I know that I'm biased when I say that, but I really believe it is, and I believe we have a purpose here. And we just have to continue to pray, to give of our time, talent, and treasures so that we can fulfill the call that God has for St. Patrick Parish in West Park. And again, Rosemary, we congratulate you on your birthday. And it's just a reminder to us when I see your wonderful family. You have several children, grandchildren, and you have been a witness of being a mother and a wife and a wonderful member of the parish, and we're grateful. And it's a sign to all of us to persevere. Rosemary recalls going bowling with my mom many years ago, and so they knew each other. And so I feel kind of a connection because of their connection. But again, Rosemary, we thank you. Every life is precious in God's eyes, every single life. And God does such great things through each and every one of our lives. And in this month of pro-life, we need to remember that. And as we give thanks for Rosemary's life, for her daughter's life, and all of her children, we give thanks to God for our lives. And we ask the Lord to fill up our inadequacy so that we may do in our lives what he wants us to do. And he's got a job for each and every one of us. So thank you for listening this morning, and let's do the best we can to continue building up St. Patrick Parish. And before I conclude, too, I've been placing the school building into God's hands over and over again. And this week I've got another glimmer of hope of something good that could happen with the school. And I'm not going to get into it now because I don't want to dash anybody's hopes or anything, but keep it in your prayers. If God is hearing my prayers, then I think something good will happen and the school building can be viable for us again. So keep that especially in your prayers.